All right, let's bring in, we're back, and joining us is Jack Posobiec, who's the host of Human Events Daily right here on Real America's Voice, but he was also on, get this, on Air Force One. Jack, really good to have you. Pretty cool to ride aboard that airplane. Tell us a little sense of, you said Trump came out and spoke to the press for a couple of minutes. He also had an interview with Brett Baer behind closed doors and what. When he was on the ground, his demeanor was great. I thought he was very optimistic. He was clapping for Putin to come on over, shook his hand. Alpha mailed it up completely. Did it start on Air Force One? Was he that confident aboard Air Force One as well?
Well, Eric, I think when we all got on the plane, talking with the staff, meeting with people, there was a confidence, but I would say also a tension, just in the sense that, you never really know how one of these things is going to go before you get there. And that led to him, making the gaggle that he did. Everybody saw what he said. And he made a series of statements saying, and even mentioned last night in an interview saying there's a 25% chance we leave early. Maybe we'll turn around and go home. And so he was leaving that out there and leaving that option open. And so we weren't really sure which way to take it just yet. But of course, he says he's pushing for peace. He wants a ceasefire, wants an end to the killing. A lot of the same refrains he's repeated over and over going into these Anchorage Accords. But then when he got to that tarmac, I agree, and having been there and being able to watch it up close and personal the way that he did, it seemed a very, very warm rapport between himself and President Putin, shaking hands, and it appeared to me that they were speaking in English because they were conversing back and forth without a translator, unless President Trump speaks Russian, has been hiding it from us this whole time. And then, of course, the B-2 flyover that took place, and I've got this video that's just going absolutely viral right now of Putin sort of looking up as this thing comes right down over all of our heads. And you never really get those flyovers to work perfectly, but we were told by the White House on the plane early on that was the plan for the F-22s and the B-2 to fly over just as they met. And you know what? They pulled it off with military precision. And the Russians seemed to be very, very impressed. Saw them then, right after that, getting into the back of the Beast, President Trump's limousine. And again, they continued the conversation, no translator present. And so they're, of course, right behind us in this room. I had the opportunity to be there in the pool spray for Real America's Voice. Was able to see that they were, again, very, very tight quarters. And you could tell, though, at that point, it was serious business. They looked like they were about to get down to have a very strong and serious conversation.
At some point after I think you guys departed Andrews and landed in Anchorage, I believe it was changed from a one-on-one, Trump and Putin, to a three-on-three, Trump, Rubio, and Steve Witkoff, to Lavrov and maybe a third Russian counterpart.
That's correct.
Did anyone kind of explain why that reasoning, why that rationale happened?
We have not been able to get that back and forth. I actually did speak to the White House press team about that. They were the ones who informed us just before we got off the plane of the change from the one-on-one to the three-on-three. And I'll just say that from my perspective, it seemed as though this may have been something that arose in a discussion with the Russians, but I wasn't able to get a specific answer on which side was the one that was pushing for that. It may have just sort of arisen directly between the two of the sides talking, because it seemed as though the negotiations for all of the proceedings that were taking place today were really coming down to the very last minute. So we're probably going to see potentially more last-minute changes as we go forward here. But again, Sergei Lavrov and then Uzharov, his foreign policy advisor, joining President Putin along with President Trump, Marco Rubio, and of course Steve Witkoff.
All right, well, we're gonna let you go, brother. We're live, so if something happens, you want to jump back on, you just give us a call, give us a shot. We'll get you back on air. Jack Posobiec, thank you so much, and enjoy those Air Force One rides. They're amazing.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, something I'll never forget. Hey, let's bring in Lara Logan. Lara, bring you back in. So what do you think you just kind of game this out, Lara? You've been doing this a really long time. You know these players, you know the Russian players as well. Why would it go from one-on-one, Putin, Trump, to three-on-three? Why? Listen, I know Trump trusts Witkoff, and I think Witkoff was the guy who brought this actually to Putin in the first place. He met him first, shook his hand, said Trump would like to meet you. But expanding it out almost tells me that maybe there is a deal on the table and they need more people more ideas. But why do you think this happened?
They're effective, right? I mean, both Trump and Putin want to be effective. They're going to make this meeting count. They both have a lot riding on it. You know, Trump's going to get hammered by his critics if he doesn't bring a peace deal for Ukraine, because he campaigned on it. He said he was going to end this war. And not only that, but neither of these two men want to waste time. You know, the one thing that unites Trump and Putin is that both of them are fighting the deep state. If you look at their policies, Putin has been, you know, while the U.S. was under Biden, was putting out military videos with people in high heels, men in high heels in uniform and lipstick, and putting transgender, you know, officers forward to lecture the troops about transgenderism. Putin was putting out videos that symbolized real military power and, you know, the tough alpha male sort of image of a warrior soldier, which is what the United States used to be and what Trump wants it to be and has brought it back under Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, right? So if you look at them, they're both opposed to the transgender operation. I say it as an operation because it's a political operation as much as anything else, using vulnerable people as a cover for whatever else they're doing, you know, destroying our understanding of what it is to be a man and a woman, preparing the ground for transhumanism, and so on. All of these things, you know, exploit good and vulnerable people. So, you know, Trump and Putin, they both stand against the deep state. They both stand against globalism. They both stand against the climate scam. They both stand against many of the pillars of globalism. They believe in sovereignty. They believe in strong nations. They share a lot of the same ideology, not because there was any kind of collusion. We know that that is a 100% fabricated, seditious conspiracy. It was an operation that was designed to bring down an elected government and an elected president, and then, of course, to go after the people of this country, to destroy this nation as a nation with open borders, and to subject American citizens to global rule. I mean, that's really what it was working towards. And neither Trump nor Putin believe in either of those things. So, but, you know, when you look at what is arrayed against them, when you look at what has been done, how American national security has been sacrificed on the altar of globalism and China and the CCP, I mean, there is some difficult terrain here. You know, bringing in Steve Witkoff and other people speaks not just to a business deal, but it speaks to a broader deal with the Middle East. Where does Russia really stand in terms of global relationships? Because what the United States has been facing, and what President Trump is no doubt very much aware of, is a coalition of its enemies. So you see the Mexican cartels, which are now terrorist organizations, working with the Venezuelan government, working with the narco state of Mexico that's been overcome and infiltrated, working with the Chinese Communist Party, working with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, which really runs the Iranian state. The Ayatollah Khomeini works for them, not the other way around, even though it doesn't appear that way. That's the reality of it. If you speak to anybody in intelligence, anybody who deals with this or has dealt with this problem for the many, many years that Iran has been the #1 state sponsor of terrorism worldwide, these people are aligned, sometimes with North Korea as well, and sometimes with Russia. And so this is a strategic meeting, not just about the Ukraine and NATO in the West, because unfortunately, traditionally, America's traditional allies, like the United Kingdom, like France, like all these countries in Western Europe, look how they're behaving today. They've allowed themselves to be invaded. They're being consumed and eaten alive by political Islam, by the Islamic civilization that seeks to obliterate Western civilization. And who is hand in hand with that? It's the Islamic leftist alliance, which is really the globalists, right? So it's really counterintuitive in many ways for most people, because you look at it and you say, oh, well, this is this country or that is that country, but it's not. You can say, why is America doing this? But who in America is doing that? Is it the globalist faction within America's domestic enemies, or is it, you know, the real Americans, patriotic, true Americans who want to preserve and fight for this country? Well, this is a battle that's taking place all over the world. I mean, the globalists are named globalists because there's a faction for every country in the world. And, you know, I actually know a former U.S. intelligence professional, whose job was to infiltrate the globalists at the UN, which is at, a very high level for the infrastructure of global government. And his job was to infiltrate the Islamic faction, which was very interesting to me because, when I met him, it was a long time ago. And we were still sort of in the post 9/11 era where you didn't really think of Islam being aligned with leftist forces or globalist forces. But
Right.
of course, there's an Islamic faction. And if you look at history, we were talking about the Nazis of Ukraine. Well, what else? Who else did the Nazis have relationships with?
I want,
All
Laura,
throughout the
I want to
Islamic
do this.
world.
Allow me.
And so all of that
allow me-
coalesces in this meeting, Eric.
Allow me to just, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is fascinating. I really want to dig into this a little bit more because what a lot of folks might not realize is how corrupt Ukraine has been through its entire history. It's the money
Very much.
laundering capital of Eastern Europe, if not even further. There's a lot of clandestine operations that have gone through. Let's bring
And
this
child
up.
trafficking.
But let
Eric.
us,
It's one of the centers for child trafficking for the world.
give me 2 minutes. We're going to come back after break and dig into this a little bit further. And that's why this meeting is so important, folks. Stay right here. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. More Lara Logan on the backside of the break.